Hey guys, how you doing? Eric at SoCal Cigars. So today's video is going to be an interesting one. This was suggested by my cousin Jake in Missouri, and he had brought it up to me, and to be honest with you, out of all the weird things I've heard in the cigar world, I'd never heard about this. He had asked me if I had ever heard of people running their cigars under tap water before they smoke it. I'm like, no, dude, I've never heard of such a thing. I can't even imagine what the point of that would be. And so I looked into it a little bit, and I've seen everything from people saying that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would you do that? To it does nothing. To it helps with older cigars that might have fragile wrappers, and it helps it so that the wrapper doesn't crack when you're like smoking it and lighting it and manipulating it. I've heard where it takes maybe cigars that are have holes in them, and it helps fill the holes. And the only one that I heard that seemed like it made the most sense to me was I talk about the fact that when you run it underwater and the outer wrapper becomes saturated with some water, that it seals the tobacco so that the porous holes that are naturally occurring in the tobacco leaf are now filled, and so that it causes a more, precise draw through the cigar, because you've sort of put like a sealant around the outside of the wrapper, and it's filled in that porous aspect of the leaf. Okay, that sort of sounds like it could make sense to me. So we're going to try it. And again, this is new to me. I've never done this. I've never even considered doing this, but Jake's asked me a couple times now. Last time I was in Missouri, I think he reminded me, he's like, hey, did you ever think about doing that one about that tap water over your cigar one? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So I think today's the day. So I've got myself a cigar here, so I'm going to go ahead and take the wrap or the band off. And so again, this is just a regular Connecticut. It's kind of a Gordo. It's like almost a 60. It's about probably 7 inches. And I'll argue it's not the best cigar in the world, but it's okay. It's a decent cigar. I don't even remember what this is. It's one that was done for an event, so the wrapper that's on it is not the wrapper that it came with, so I'm not sure, or the band. So I'm not sure exactly what this thing is, but I know it's a decent middle of the road cigar. And also, one thing I did hear is someone said that when they tried this, I read this on the internet, someone did mention that when they tried this themselves, they said that it made the cigar seem creamier. Yeah, so I don't know. So apparently what you do is you're literally just running it under tap water. Nothing special, not distilled water, nothing crazy, just regular tap water. So what I have here is a glass of tap water. They also indicated that you're trying not to get anything up in the foot, and you're not cutting the cigar prior to doing this. So you're going to run it over this way so that it saturates the wrapper. And then the few things that I did read to try to figure out how to do this properly is they did say to then kind of massage the water into the wrapper so that it's completely saturated, and then you just smoke it like normal. So we're going to try that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera real quick just so I can not pour water in my lap. And so you're going to go for a little ride. There you go. Was that fun? Good. Okay, here we go. So we're going to take this cigar and we're just going to gently pour water over it so that it becomes saturated. And I would say that is clearly completely saturated. And they said to massage it in. Because one person did say too, if you chicken out after doing this, the good news is you could always just let the cigar dry out again and you're good to go. And they did say you could sort of towel it off if you wanted to. Let's get you back over here with me. So what I will do off camera here is I'm going to kind of rub this along my pants real quick just to kind of get some of the excess moisture off the outside. So it's not, so that the wrapper's clearly saturated, but it's also not dripping wet. Okay, so here's what we ended up with. This is I can feel it. It's completely saturated. Almost, you can feel the moisture. You can smell it's wet. It almost smells like a little more musky smelling. So, all right, so next thing we're going to do is I'm going to set this down real quick. Gonna get my bag of goodies out. Let's see what we get. Got a lighter, and we're gonna get a cutter. So let's find the cutter. There we go. All right. So we'll do the usual DV on this bad boy. Cut like normal. And the inside of the cigar clearly still feels dry. Oh, that was when I told you that it talked about an older cigar helping keeping it from falling apart. But even that, like right now, I'm kind of cracked. And this came out of my Tupperador that was 69 degrees, 69% relative humidity. All right, let's actually got a soft flame on this one. As long as I can get it to work, because it is windy out, as you can probably see. The trees are blowing, the wind is blowing. The wind chimes, wind chiming. Okay, we're toasty. See, it's not really burning any worse for being completely saturated, and it's funny because even though you saw it was completely drenched, I mean, I used almost the entire glass of water, and it pretty quickly starting to feel like it dries up, pretty quick. So as far as drawing on it, it draws fine. I'm trying to decide if it feels like maybe it draws a little differently because it's like we talked about, the water is basically filled in the pores of the tobacco leaf. That may be the case. It sort of does feel like it's pulling. It could be. I'm trying to figure out how to articulate it. So sometimes you feel like a cigar just has a bad draw, right? It's been wrapped bad, it's got stems, whatever. Or it's been wrapped too tightly, especially machine rolled. This doesn't feel like that, because when I did the dry draw, I could feel it had a normal draw. But now when I'm drawing through it, trying to smoke it like normal, you sort of can feel that it's almost like there is a barrier that's causing it to draw through in a different way, almost like it's, yeah, I mean, like I almost sort of can feel that it feels like it's filled in the pores, and it's like it's not drawing in like normal. It feels like it's directed through a little tighter, almost like it is, the smoke is sealed in, a little tighter. It's hard to describe. But it almost makes me feel like that when the cigar is porous, like normal, without being wet, it's almost like as you're drawing air through, it's going through the end, but it's also maybe coming in everywhere a little bit, just because the tobacco leaf obviously is porous. If you look at the tobacco leaf under a microscope, you can see it's not like saran wrap. So it does sort of feel like that's been filled in, so that it's really drawing more through the cigar, and it's not pulling in from anywhere else but the very end. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of hard to articulate. I mean, the burn looks good. It's not got a wonky burn. Because I was thinking with it being wet like that, it's going to burn shitty, because you get that sometimes with an over humidified cigar. This was 69% relative humidity, at least the humidor was, based on my little humimeter thing. God only knows what the inside of the cigar is doing. I'm still going to test that. Just as an update on that, I did buy the pouch, and I did buy the calibration tester, so that you actually hold the meter onto a little calibrator, and it showed exactly 70%. So apparently it's calibrated correctly. So if you do go on Amazon or wherever you find that thing, you can get the whole kit instead of just buying what I bought originally, which was just the meter. You can get the meter, the pouch, and the tester all as one kit, and it's only like another $15, so it's probably worth doing that. Because I ended up buying it separately later and ended up spending more money because of it. Interesting. But I've smoked this cigar before. I've smoked these before because we've had them for an event, and this was like one of the leftovers, and so I know I've had this cigar. And I will argue the it could be the smoke is a little creamier. The smoke's a little. It's almost also like that. It's like it's cooling it down. It's like even when I feel the cigar, it almost feels cooler than normal. And when I'm in the smoke, almost feels cooler. So maybe that's why that individual that I read about, his comment online was that he felt the smoke was creamier. You know what I think it really is I think it's almost that the smoke is cooler. But I do feel like the volume of smoke is lower. Because if I remember right, this was a pretty average output of smoke. It's funny, I do have there's a little cut in this one too. You can't really see me, but there's a little cut right there, so I'm wondering if that actually helped with that. Anyway, I'm going to do one of my famous pairings, and this cigar, drenched in tap water, is probably a perfect fit for the old sun-kissed berry lemonade. You know, prove me wrong. You know, so we'll try that. Let's see how that goes with it. Actually, it's okay. Not bad. I like sweet. So when a cigar is not sweet and you drink something sweet, it helps. You got to think your palate when you're taking in the smoke and you're taking in the flavor of the cigar. Whatever's in your mouth already affects it. So that's why people do talk, and maybe I'll do another video on actual pairing, because I always joke around pairing, and you know me, I'd like to drink sodas and stuff. I don't really drink that much alcohol, but you know, so I'll have all these kooky pairings, but but when it really comes down to it, pairing is actually important. So maybe I'll do a video just on pairing, because if you have a cigar, even I've had a cigar that's kind of like bland, it's not very flavorful, maybe it's like a one note wonder. Have that like with like a cappuccino coffee, and I'm telling you, by having the cappuccino coffee in your mouth, that really changes the palate, and it almost makes the cigar taste better. So you really can, you know, like I said, as much as I make light of pairing, it's a real thing. So maybe look out for a video on that. Maybe I'll do a pairing, and we'll talk about, you know, how it affects. Maybe I can have several things out here: water, soda, maybe a couple different alcohols, beer, like a bourbon or something, and see how that affects the flavor of the cigar I'm smoking. That might be interesting to do. So let's think about that. So I'll argue the burn is great. Again, I was really concerned about the wrapper being wet, that it was going to burn weird, and it's actually burning really nice. Whether it's enhancing the flavor, because that was one comment, I'm not sure that it's enhancing the flavor. I'll tell you, I think what I'm agreeing with so far is that I do believe it's cooling the smoke, because it still feels cooler to the touch than normal. It's not like room temperature, because usually when you hold a cigar in your hands, it just feels like kind of room temperature. This actually feels cooler to the touch. So I guarantee that water has made this cooler. So I have a feeling that the smoke is a little bit cooler. I think that's maybe what's making it seem creamier, which is fine, because whatever is making it seem creamier, it's still seeming creamier. And I would say that it does feel like the smoke is being channeled through the cigar differently, I think, because it's locked up the pores of the leaf. I think that might be true as well. Do I think that it's enhancing the flavor? Not necessarily. Do I think that you would have to worry about ruining a cigar by doing this? After doing this right now? Even this little bit so far? No. No, I don't think this damages it whatsoever. I don't think I would be concerned about doing this again. I mean, and I guess then the question is going to become, does this seem like something I would do all the time because it's such a big benefit? I don't know. It's interesting. I would argue just the... Think about this. Let's think about it. As I'm talking, I'm thinking. We always talk about the fact that when you're smoking a cigar and you're drawing through the cigar, it's heating up the tobacco. And that by heating up the tobacco, it's causing certain flavors to come out. So in theory, if you're cooling the cigar off and cooling the smoke a little bit, that means you're not rising, the temperature's not rising as high in the cigar. So it effectively, it would change the flavor a little bit. And I would argue that the hotter a cigar gets, it can bring out the more bitter, peppery notes, which I don't like. So in theory, it could be that by doing this tap water trick and you cool the cigar down a little bit, it could be that you get a little less bitter, because I'm not getting anything bitter off this cigar. And if I recall, because this, like I said, this is not a top shelf cigar. If I recall, this cigar wasn't overly bitter, but I do remember it being a little bitter, and I'm not tasting that at all this time. So I'm wondering if that could be the case. And I'm telling you, I'll argue this thing's burning perfectly, and I don't recall it doing that either last time, because you can even see in this one the construction is not fantastic. You got a couple cracks in it. You've got, you know, quite a few stems showing through. You know, I mean, this is, again, I mean, look back here. This is crazy visible stem. So again, this is not, you know, this is by no means like a, you know, Davidoff or, you know, something of that caliber. Arturo Fuentes. This is a mediocre cigar at best, but it's not too bad. I mean, I'm not done yet, and we're gonna, you know, get into this more. But if I had to give you my take right now, my take right now is it's not such a crazy idea. Because I wasn't sure what to expect. I was thinking at best it was just going to be stupid and worthless, and yeah, this is just some dumb old wives' tale. And I'm not sure. I would argue just the fact that it seems to have cooled the cigar off and maybe filled in the pores of the leaf. I think those two aspects alone, and I'm telling you, this thing is burning really well, and I don't remember it burning this well last time. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it, because it's cooling down the burn process too. And maybe it's helping it to burn a little more evenly. Maybe there's something to this. All right, well, this is a big cigar, so I'm going to get into this. Let me get into this a little deeper so that we don't make this a 27-year-long video. Let me continue to smoke this down, and then I'll come back and we'll talk a little more about it. But I don't know. So far, I'm feeling a little hopeful about this whole tap water idea. So hang tight, and we'll come back. Okay, I am back. So I smoked it down a little bit more. I mean, maybe at almost halfway. Unfortunately, I dropped it, and it put the cigar out, so I had to relight it. But I was going to say before that I dropped it, rolled off the table when I set it down. I was going to say that I was surprised how I could just leave the cigar and keep hitting it, and it wasn't going out. And I was thinking with the wrapper being damp that it was going to go out easier, and it didn't for sure. One thing I did notice, though, is even with it being wet, I do have a little bit of this wrapper falling apart. So I did notice that, and I was surprised. But I'll tell you what I'm noticing. Let me get this thing to light again here. One thing I did notice is that sort of validated what I was saying, is that I did notice as the wrapper seems to be drying, it's I can feel it's warmer, and I can taste that it's more bitter. So I think that confirms to me that there is something to this, where it's cooling down the smoke, cooling down the cigar in general. It kept it from being bitter, and then I guess I could say the only drawback to this is the fact that once it starts to dry out, probably from you smoking it partially, and then obviously just water evaporating, because again, it wasn't like it was soaked in water for like an hour. It's just, poured over it. I would say that as it starts to naturally dry back out and warm up, I started getting it more bitter. And so I think that validates the fact that while it was still damp, it was keeping it cooler and less bitter. I gotta give it that. And again, it was doing much better. If I hadn't dropped it, this thing was perfect. It was burning perfect. In fact, before I started the video again, I must have had an ash that tall, and it was just spot on. Perfect burn. But since I dropped it, it fell into water. It's kind of became a disaster over here. But before that happened, I can tell you that I definitely noticed that it was starting to dry out, starting to heat up. I could physically feel the temperature of the cigar was warmer, like I can feel now. And then I could start tasting it getting a little bitter. So I gotta say, if I gotta look at like Mythbusters type thing, is this a myth or is it not a myth? I'm gonna argue it's not a myth. I think that there's something to this idea of running your cigar under tap water. I gotta be honest, I was concerned. That's why I picked a cigar like I did. I didn't pick one of my really good cigars in case this thing went south and it screwed my cigar up and it was a bad experience. I will tell you, I think the test to anything is, would you do it again? And I would absolutely do it again. In fact, what I would probably do this next time is I would probably run it under the tap longer. I would probably actually run it under the tap in the house and get it even more saturated, because I think the only downside to this, to be honest with you, was when it started to dry back out. Then it started to heat back up, and then it started to get a little bit bitter, and it burned a little wonkier. I would argue that this cigar was performing better while it was damp than it is now that it has dried out. So I would almost say that this is worth trying. I know it sounds kooky, but I would, and again, if you're concerned like I was, I would just, pick a cigar that you're willing to sacrifice in case you decide this is not working for you. But I would argue that I would absolutely give this a try. I think it's legit. I think that if nothing else, take anything else away from it, just the two factors that it keeps the cigar cooler and that it seems to fill in the pores of the tobacco outer wrapper leaf. I think those two things alone were a hit. And I would tell you flat out, I will definitely be doing this again. And I would, like I said, my only real complaint is that it dried out sooner than I had hoped at that rate. I was hoping this thing was going to stay damp longer, because I would argue it was a better cigar while it was more damp than it is now that it's dried out a little bit. So they say the proof's in the pudding. Well, there you go. This was a better performing cigar while it was damp. So I would say, when it comes to running your cigar under tap water, hell yeah, for me, I'm down. I would highly recommend trying this. Thank you to Jake for driving me on this one twice, because I kept forgetting to do it, and I'm glad he reminded me, and I'm glad I did this, because I'm telling you, I will do this again for sure. I'm quite shocked, to be honest with you. This is not how I anticipated this video to be going. I was thinking I was going to be at the end going, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. It does nothing. It is a total waste of time. I will argue it. I don't agree with that at all at this point. I would definitely think this is worth trying. So I would give it a go. And again, just to be safe, just so you feel comfortable doing it, pick a cigar you're not too worried about it. Pick a lower end cigar. And arguably pick a cigar that you know is kind of lower end, so that you know how it normally performs, and see if this tap water idea changes the performance of the cigar, because I'm telling you it did on this one for sure. I mean for sure, 100%. So again, run your damn cigar into tap water, give it a try. Worst case scenario, you maybe just don't think it does anything, but I'm telling you, I totally think it improved this cigar immeasurably. So I'm a convert. I'll tell you that. I will definitely be doing this again. Will I do it every time? No. But I think that if I'm sitting around and I think about it, or if, it almost would be kind of a cool thing to bring up if you're with a big group of your friends and say, hey, have you guys ever thought about running your cigar under tap water, so that everyone can look at you like you're a crazy person, and then do it and let them see for themselves that, hey, this actually seemed to improve I keep saying like the performance of the cigar, because it did. It cooled it down. It kept it cooler. It kept it like more solid as far as how porous the leaves are. I'm telling you, I'd give it a shot. Anyway, enjoy the rest of this is actually a holiday weekend. We're off. This is Sunday. We're off tomorrow, Monday. So hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And if you're going to smoke a cigar today or tomorrow, I'm throwing it out there. Run that thing under tap water. See what you think. Let me know in the comments. I'd really be curious to see if you've never tried that before. And if you try it, let me know what you think, and if you think it was actually worth doing or not. I'd really be interested in hearing that. So anyway, thanks to Jacob for the suggestion. And again, Eric at SoCal Cigars. And I will see you on the next video. And don't be afraid of the tap water, people. Give it a go. See you on the next video.